Berkshire Hathaway just confirming what we've been reporting this morning, that the Berkshire Hathaway board voted to name Greg Abel president and CEO as of January 1st of this coming year. Warren Buffett's going to remain on as chairman, and that comes after Warren Buffett ended the Berkshire Hathaway annual shareholders meeting on an unexpected note on Saturday.
Greg should become the chief executive officer of the company at year end, and I want to spring that on the directors effectively and then give that as my recommendation. Let them have the time to think about what questions or what structures or anything they want, and then at the meeting following that, which will come in a few months, we'll take action on whatever the view is of the 11 directors. I think they'll be unanimously in favor of it. And that would mean that at year end, Greg would be the chief executive officer of Berkshire.
That announcement came at the very end of the shareholders meeting on Saturday in the final moments. Came as a surprise not just to the directors on the floor and to the shareholders as well, but also to Greg Abel himself, who didn't know the timing of this announcement or when. It was long expected that Greg Abel would be stepping in as the CEO eventually. Nobody knew he was going to call for it now. You can see there Warren Buffett receiving a standing ovation from that packed arena, where Buffett and Abel had just spent more than 4 hours answering questions. Again, Warren Buffett's 94. He will be 95 when he actually steps aside as CEO. Greg Abel is 62, and he's going to be stepping in to take hold of that. And Andrew, you and I have been going to this meeting for a lot of years. It was more packed than I've ever seen it before, which may be a little hard to believe after the passing of Charlie Munger, but the meeting keeps getting bigger every year, and that standing ovation was really something.
I want to know what you thought, because we actually didn't get to talk too much ourselves about it. When he said there was a 5-minute warning, exclamation point, because he was reading down on a screen. And I thought that was the first time I'd ever seen him do that. And I thought to myself, okay, something's about to happen here.
Everybody there kind of sat up collectively, like, what? What are we about to hear?
What did you think of that?
I thought it was kind of a classic move, and the more time I've had to think about it, he kind of did it perfectly. It came after more than 4 hours of taking questions from shareholders in an unscripted meeting, not knowing what was coming. And he let all of his partners, all of his shareholders, find out at the same time. He's always treated the shareholders just as he did his partners when it was a small family and friends operation, you know, a handful of them meeting at the National Indemnity lunchroom. This was kind of that same homespun feeling. We're all finding out about this together, and even Greg Abel finding out about this at that same time. And again, if this had happened in a press release, I think people would have wondered if something had happened to Warren Buffett, if he wasn't able to any longer do the job. I think doing it after taking all those questions would relieve people of those questions. You know, he's still mentally totally there. He gets it. He can run through all of these businesses. He can answer any question you throw his way. But the way he set it up is he thinks that Greg deserves the title of CEO, that he's been running the non-insurance operations and doing that very effectively and picking up more and more responsibility as time has gone by. We've known since 2021, 4 years ago, that Greg Abel was going to be the next CEO, that was the plan for the board. We found out at that Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting that year when Charlie Munger kind of slipped and accidentally said that Greg would be responsible for the culture. So we've known since then. Ron Olson, the retiring board member who just stepped down yesterday, told us that it was years before that the board had him in mind. So this is a process that's been in place maybe as long as a decade, kind of watching this, the grooming of this entire situation, and the board deciding yesterday that Warren Buffett will still remain as chairman. He can be there to help Greg Abel as he continues to pick up more and more responsibility.
I thought it was remarkable. I will admit, and I know you guys think that I cry at car commercials, which I guess I do, but I got a little teary. I mean, you could just feel it in the room. It was really such a remarkable thing to see so many people who had come to this for so long, and to see Warren hand over the reins like that. The whole thing was very much. It'd be very interesting to me to see what the company and what the culture of the company is like in the future, because it was so unique and such his painting. He used to talk about it as his painting, and it was almost built around one single individual in so many ways. So it's going to be fascinating just to watch, what Greg Abel does with the company, and also just even what the structure of the company in some ways looks like, because for so long it's had such little overhead. I mean, that's actually that's been a feature, not a bug. But as we saw, Warren Buffett makes decisions and tells the board oftentimes afterwards. I imagine in the future you might have more infrastructure, more lawyers and bankers and advisors and people and all the kinds of things that a lot of other big corporations have. And so it'll be very interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, I think Buffett's idea would be to maintain the unique structure that is Berkshire Hathaway. Look, you may need some. They don't have legal counsel official. They always just relied on Munger Tolles to talk about some of those things. But the idea of no legal counsel there, no communications department, no investor relations board, they don't do quarterly calls with the investor community. I guess there are a lot of questions about whether that remains, and whether Greg Abel will have the same authority or anywhere near the same authority to be able to make decisions about tens or even $100+ billion acquisitions without bringing the whole board in. And I think Buffett would like to see that continue, and would like to very much make sure that Berkshire Hathaway can still be nimble. And I guess the question is winning enough support from the board to do that, and from the general shareholder population, which having Buffett on as chairman for a while could probably be very helpful to Greg Abel in that. Having him as a sounding board on some of those things, too. I mean, Joe had talked about at the top of the show how we've all known Warren Buffett pretty well for a long time. He's been a friend of Squawk Box. He jokes around a lot with us, too. I think that's one of the things that Joe was pointing out at the top, too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Never had a time when he doesn't have some angle, some sardonic take on things. It's just the way he really does have a joy for the funny aspects of life. I think that's his approach. I looked it up.
I think that's the secret to his longevity.
Joie de vivre. We need to use French to figure it out, I guess. Although they don't always seem like they're that happy about things, but.
No, I think that optimism and that optimism for life, that interest in always learning more, was probably the secret to longevity for Charlie Munger, who lived to almost 100, and for Warren Buffett himself. I mean, you can look at anybody who's got an optimistic outlook, and odds are you're going to have a longer life cycle. That idea of constant learning, I think, is one that he's preached to the shareholders and anybody who wants to listen for years and years, and certainly a lesson I've tried to learn.
Becky, I read, I didn't hear it, but cherry Coke. I don't work out. He's like the opposite of Maha, is he not? And just sharp as attack and headed for 95. Yeah, sharp as attack and headed for 95. So there's a lot of different.
Yeah, he said that he and Charlie never worked out a day in their life that they didn't have to.
Yep.
Charlie made a point of saying the only time he ever did was when he was required to, when he was in the service. He said they were preserving their bodies for long life that way. They never wore out their joints too early by all that exercise.